What is up, my fellow nerds? Good morning and welcome. I'm broadcasting live on this foggy June day from Site B. It is the 19th day of June, 2024. It's about 9:30 in the morning. And I don't know if you knew this. But there's a new Players Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons coming out in September, sometime after Gen Con. I don't know if you knew this. I don't know if you knew this was the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons. And to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast is releasing a brand new Player's Handbook sometime after Gen Con. But don't worry, it's not a new edition of the game. I should warn you that before we go any further, that this is going to be filled with sarcasm and less than kind words for Wizards of the Coast and the 2024 Players Handbook, which apparently you don't need. So if that's something you find a little upsetting and you'd rather me talk about something else, I will not be upset if you choose to skip this video. Also, remember, if I hit 2,000 subs by August 4th, I will take an entire month off from talking about Wizards of the Coast. Just tossing that out there. Now, in case you're the one person on the planet who didn't know that this was coming out, and in case you missed the year's worth of them telling you what to expect in the upcoming book, the hundreds and hundreds of articles and posts and reviews and stuff that we've done over the past year, in case you are the one person, maybe you're on the space station, I don't know, maybe you're lost on a boat, maybe you've been living underground for a year and you missed every other story about this. They decanted Jerry Crawford from the vat that they keep him in underneath the Wizards of the Coast offices to spend an hour on the tube of you informing us exactly what is different, what is new in this, the single largest Player's Handbook ever made for a game. The single largest Player's Handbook ever made for the game. Now, I don't know if he's saying it's single largest Player's Handbook ever made for D&D or the single largest Player's Handbook ever made for any role-playing game. We do know that it's 75% brand new art. Here's an example of the amount of space that is wasted in this book on brand new art. Every character class has a full page of art. Every subclass, many of the feats, some of the equipment, lots of the spells have a half page or full page of art. 70% is art. Now, the rest of it, he spends 7 minutes talking about the covers and the new art. He spends 2 minutes talking about how they've changed the backgrounds. He spends 6 minutes talking about how it's a brand new rule book, but it's not a new rule book. He spends 5 minutes talking about the new classes and subclasses, 42 subclasses in all. He spends an entire minute talking about the new feats. He spends another 5 minutes talking about the alternative covers. He spends 10 minutes telling us how to use the new Player's Handbook. And the rest of it is talking about the stuff that's in the Player's Handbook that is new and different. Mind you, once again, this is not a new game. This is not a new version. But it is all the old rules have been completely revised, but it's not a new version. There's a bunch of new rules, but it's not a new version. Every class has been changed in some form or another, but it's not a new version. There are 42 subclasses now, but it's not a new version. There are tons of new spells, feats, backgrounds, changes, drastic changes, but it's not a new edition. This is not 6th edition. It also contains the brand new SRD 5.5, Now, the old SRD was like 10 pages, I think, 5-10 pages without, and I mean, it was like, wasn't that big. It was an SRD. SRDs don't have to be that big. It's like they're like 20 pages. This new SRD is double the size of the old SRD. It is completely new. It's completely different. If you made stuff under the old 5.1 SRD that came out in 2023, well, too bad. Doesn't count anymore because they've released a brand new SRD with this. So if you're looking to make stuff going forward using anything from this book or the new Monster Manual, you have to make it under the new SRD. But don't worry. The old SRD still counts. You can still make stuff under the old SRD for 5 point whatever they're going to call it. Let's refer to it as 2014 D&D or 5e D&D or D&D before the plague. Whatever, I don't know. You can still make stuff for that version. They're not going to actively support it, but you can still make stuff. Of course, they would prefer you to make stuff for the brand new SRD, which includes, I'm sure, some extremely draconian rules about what you can and can't print and money and how much stuff they control. Because, that's the whole reason, one of the whole reasons they made a new SRD. Because of the OGL thing, which is a completely separate product. So it has a brand new SRD, but it's not a new edition. Now, they want you to know that if you made a character in 2014 and you make a character with the new Players Handbook, those characters are still okay. They can still hang out together. Now, mind you, the new rules supersede the old rules. But you could still make a 2014 character. He just won't be using, unless you use the new rules. And the new rules, of course, are better. They're different. They're completely unique to 2024 D&D. And we've been talking about that a lot, about how things are now completely unique, how things are being drastically changed to fit 2024 D&D. And there's been like, well, okay, there's drastic changes, but it's not a new edition. But it is a new edition because you drastically changed it. But it's not a new edition. You refer to it as a new edition. You also refer to it just as, an update. Now, I could toss out the whole, well, then if it's not a new edition, couldn't you have just made it an errata? Couldn't you have just released the Unearthed Arcana book for statistically less amount of money? And do we really need 75% of the book just to be new art? It's the single largest Players Handbook ever. Are you saying it's the single largest Players Handbook for D&D? Or are you saying it's the single largest Players Handbook for any game? I mean, the Dungeon Crawl Classic book is pretty thick, but it also concludes the entire, the weird DCC spells and everything. I mean, the Players Handbook for some of my other games that I have are pretty decent sized, but that is not a selling point. That is not a 300, that's not a selling point. Extra art is not a selling point because for every picture of extra art, there's a brand new, that's the amount of information that we miss. But that's okay because, it's not a new edition. In fact, there's an hour of Crawford continually telling us how it's changed, but reminding us it's not a new edition. We don't need this. We don't need this book. I mean, everything's changed, and we're not going to support the old stuff. And any character you made under the old rules in no way, shape, or form are equal to the characters in the new rules because the new rules are a lot better, and we've also changed a lot of things. And there's been some questioning about those changes. We mentioned about, a couple weeks ago about how they're changing dragons, and they're changing a lot of other things, and they're making things completely different to what we know is D&D. And there's been a lot of, well, why are you doing that? But if we took some time to think about it, and we realize why they're doing that, okay? And this is the first step in completely erasing previous lore and completely erasing anything that existed before this Player's Handbook. Despite them saying, there's no canon before 2014, and despite them saying we're going to support 2014 Dungeons and Dragons, they're not. They're completely erasing everything that happens before 2024 D&D because they want to 100% completely control everything that is in any way, shape, or form associated with Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons and have it completely different from anything else. So it's 100% there. So even though Pathfinder has a fighter class and Tales from the Valiant has a fighter's class and DC-20 has a fighter's class and MCDM has a fighter's class and all the other D20 games, their fighter class is going to be so unique to them that when the digital stuff starts rolling out, they can put it in their way and it's completely theirs. And it is now a completely separate, brand new, extremely copyrighted thing, just like the changes they're making to dragons and magic and spells and everything else, because now it's 100% theirs. It's not based upon Gygax D&D any way, shape, or form, because they don't want to be associated with Gygax D&D. Remember, they don't want to be associated with Gygax D&D anymore. And 2014 D&D is still associated with Gygax. They don't want to be associated with the OGL anymore because they don't want you to be able to use it. Because still, despite everything, technically you can still use the OGL. They don't want it to be associated with the SRD that they came out with last year. They want everything to be 100% theirs with no previous connection to anything that we would consider in any way, shape, or form D&D. And going forward, as they continue to turn things into this digital, virtual tabletop AI dungeon master thing that is happening. I'm sorry, it is happening. Please stop saying, oh, they're not going to do that. It's all theirs. It's all theirs. Which, you know, but it's not a new edition. But it is a new edition because you have changed everything. If you sit down at a D&D game into 2025, you will not be playing Gygax Dungeons and Dragons. You will not be playing anything, shape, or form that is even remotely connected to Dungeons and Dragons. It will be finally what Wizards of the Coast has been trying to do for the past, since 4th. Completely erase any connection with Gygaxian Dungeons and Dragons, completely erase any connection with 2014 Dungeons and Dragons, because that's problematic. And they want to avoid what happened last year with the OGL going forward. And this is how they're going to do it. It is a brand new 100% theirs game. We are expecting this game to come out sometime after Gen Con. But pre-orders are going live now in case that's something you want to get a jump on. Just like with the Vecna pre-order they did, because we know how successful that was. I'm being sarcastic considering how badly the Vecna game is being reviewed and how badly the freebie was being reviewed. If you pre-order now, you will receive exclusive, free, never before seen, limited only to the people who pre-order digital stuff, digital bonuses. Now, if you pre-ordered Vecna, you got an entire adventure that explained how your characters reached the point at the begin where the Vecna adventure begins. So if you didn't have that, you don't understand the connection between your characters and Vecna. And I'm not sure the Vecna modules explains that or not, because it kind of feels from all the reviews I've read and seen that if you didn't get the pre-order thing, you have really no idea what's going on. Not that it matters, because you're going to win anyways. Ignore that. But at least you got an adventure. If you pre-order the Players Handbook, you get free D&D Beyond digital bonuses. What a great thing. I'm glad to know that if I pre-order this largest Players Handbook ever, 75% new art, completely different 2024 Players Handbook, I will also get digital art book, the Dragons of D&D digital art book, because that's something, I want to share with my friends and family. Is a digital art book, an art book of dragons. That's something I'd want to put on a coffee table, right? That's something I want to put up in the face so that when people walk into my store, the first thing they see is this huge book that's filled with beautiful pictures and beautiful lore of dragons. Except, no, this is a digital book. You're not sending me a physical book. You're sending me a digital art book that I can only access through D&D Beyond. I'll also get a D&D Beyond Gold Digital 50th Anniversary dice set. Digital dice set. Made of solid digital gold. I don't know what digital gold is, but okay. And we will get a 50th Anniversary Digital Gold Dragon Mini. But you won't be able to use the 50th Anniversary Digital Gold Dragon Mini until the Dungeons & Dragons 3D Virtual Tabletop goes live. So even though you will have paid to get this digital Gold Dragon Mini, remember, this is a digital project. It will not exist in the physical world, and you will only be able to access as long as you maintain your D&D Beyond membership. But you will have a digital Dragon Mini. You won't be able to use that digital Dragon Mini or even look at that digital Dragon Mini until the 3D virtual tabletop on D&D Beyond goes live, which has already been delayed a year, if not longer. But when and if that goes live, if you have pre-ordered the Players Handbook, and if you are maintaining your D&D Beyond membership, when the 3D virtual tabletop goes live, you will then be able to finally be able to look at, see, and interact with your digital dragon. That is, if you pre-order the Players Handbook, you will get it. The digital Players Handbook when it goes live. You will get the physical Players Handbook whenever they decide to send it out. And you will also get a digital art book, digital dice made out of solid digital gold, and a digital figure of a digital gold dragon. Ooh, exciting that I can't see for another year or 2 or 3 or 5 or whenever this thing actually goes live. But that's okay, because it's 75% more new art. We've got some comments. Let's look at them. Cal says, probably not, but I'll listen. I assume he's responding to me, do you care? They said it's a new edition previously. Yes, yes, and no. Depending upon what day of the week it is, Crawford has said, yes, it is a new edition. No, it isn't a new edition. Perkins said, yes, it is a new edition. No new edition. If you have the guts to go through the hour long of Crawford congratulating himself and ignore, can make it through them telling you over and over again the new art and how everything has changed, they don't actually say new edition. They never refer to it as 6th edition. They never refer to it as 5th edition. It's just Dungeons and Dragons, 2024 Dungeons and Dragons, the 2024 Players Handbook. But by definition, it's different enough to be a new edition. Violence Solves Everything says, they keep saying it's not a new edition. They have said it was a revision, compatible, new evolution, and so on, but they have yet to say new edition. Well, they did. Crawford did more than once. But you don't have to say new edition. You just have to say we changed everything. Violence Solves Everything says, since D&D players don't bother to read the rules anyways, why not just fill it with pretty pictures for them to look at instead? That is true. Cal says, I'm jumping. You're jumping? I don't know what that means, but okay. Cal also says, exclusive AI art. That's kind of confusing. Yes, it is. And Cal says, ooh, symbols only. Again, I'm not sure what he's referring to. So in closing, there is a link down below if you want to listen to Crawford self-congratulate himself for an hour plus, telling you exactly how they've changed 2024 D&D. This is in case, you're that one person who missed the entire previous year of them talking about it. You can now find out what's changed, all the new changes to the rules, all the new changes to the feats, all the new changes to the class, how all of the old things have been revised. There's tons of new things. There's new feats. There's new backgrounds. There's new spells. There's 42 brand new subclasses. All the races aren't races anymore, as we know. Those have all changed. How you create a character is completely changed. but it's not a new edition. It is 70% new art, though. Ooh. Ooh. I don't miss it. At least it's over. Now we can spend, the next couple months talking about the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is coming out in November, or the Monster Manual, which is coming out in 2025. And all the cool stuff you'll get if you pre-order those, like digital dice. Now, I had no plans to purchase this because I already have 2014 5e, and according to Crawford, even though everything has changed and it has a brand new SRD. This is why it's a new edition, it has a brand new SRD, and that SRD is double the size of the original SRD that came out last year. If I were going to buy it, if there was a universe where I was going to buy this, where alternate universe me was going to buy this, and I'm looking at the stuff I'm going to get for free, I think I'd say everything is cutified. We can, yeah, it does have this new weird dreamy look to it that they're, really all excited about. This weird new art style. That. That. So that's an example of the thing you'll get. This, an entire page for a class or a subclass. Yep, there's some of your cutesy art. There's some art. There's some more art. There's an example of an entire page wasted. Yeah, ooh, actually the idea of a beholder hot air balloon is kind of clever. But yeah. I would want, is it more art than recent other tabletop role-playing books? What do you like? Mork Borg? It's 70% more art than the previous Players Handbook. I don't know if they've compared it with other Players Handbooks and other books that have a lot of art in it. But it is the largest Players Handbook ever made. At least that's what Crawford says. I don't know if he means the largest Players Handbook for D&D or the largest Players Handbook for any game ever. But he does start it with saying that. And then, now if I could finish my sentence, I don't know about you, but if I was pre-ordering the 2024 Players Handbook, I'd want a t-shirt instead of digital dice. Send me a 50th anniversary t-shirt, which still doesn't exist. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to find out more, link down below. If you're the one person on the planet who has missed the previous year of them talking about this, here's your chance to get all caught up and find out exactly how the 2024 Players Handbook is completely different than any other Players Handbook we've ever seen, including a brand new SRD and them scrubbing any pre-existing lore so they can make it 100% Wizards of the Coast D&D and have no connection with Gygax D&D anymore. You can go and look at it. Yes, they don't want to make any physical product. They still have to for another year or two. Really, Mar Hockman? They're planning on discontinuing physical product? Yeah, really? I mean, I don't. They told you they were going to do that in 2020. Is anybody still surprised? Now, here's the point where I say, or you could completely ignore everything I just spent the past 25 minutes saying. Use the link down below to go to Drive-Thru and pick up the Summer Superhero Spectacular bundle that I made for Wretched Vigilantes for only $9. So you could spend hundreds of dollars on 2024 D&D, or you could spend $9 on 2024 Wretched Vigilantes. I don't know about you, but I'd choose that one. Anyways, I'm the OG GM. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you never want to hear me talk about Wizards of the Coast ever again, for at least for a month, all you have to do is help me hit 2,000 subs by August 4th, and I promise I will spend an entire month not talking about Wizards of the Coast, which means we'll talk a lot about superhero role-playing games. Till next time, get off my land!